Hello, my name's Keri McInerney and I'm an Australian country and blues artist. I've worked throughout Australia and I've done a lot of festivals. I've also represented Australia in the United States and I've had many hit singles and generally had a really lovely life. I've always been a busy person and I've always been involved in, organisation of things and generally I'm a big thinking person. I do a lot of long hours, but I enjoy it. I design and I paint and I take photos and I write music, I write songs and perform. I'm also somebody who feels a lot of emotions, and I think that's been a part of who I am as well. In 2018, I think I started to feel a little bit different to the busy thinking Keri that, and maybe even a little bit before, I started to feel a little bit different and I couldn't quite explain it, but I just didn't feel like me anymore. I remember thinking one day I was so tired, so exhausted, and also, having struggled just to remember things. I thought that I was dying, but I didn't know what was wrong with me, and I wasn't sure whether it was just like anxiety or depression. I had been through a little bit of trauma around my career, and I think that had a big impact as well at the time. So I really wasn't sure whether it was just something that, I was imagining or whether it was something that was really going wrong. I started having the odd moment of, issues with my breathing and swallowing, which concerned me, and I thought, well, am I having a stroke maybe? Maybe there's something going wrong like that. But I didn't really know. So I just sort of got on with things and still did my gigs and my music and all the things that I loved. And then one night I was sitting in front of the television and I suddenly saw this zigzag thing that kind of went out to my eye, on this side of my eye. And it was like electricity. I'd had a little bit of that electrical kind of thing going on about a year before. And I'd been to the optometrist and they said that the gel behind the eye had given way. So when this kind of happened, I really wasn't too sure, what it really was or whether it was the same thing. Before this incident, though, I'd had a bleed into my left eye and no one could explain it. No one could, tell me what it was. And that was just a few months prior to this zigzag thing happening on this Friday night. So it kind of scared me when this thing happened. And it was also like a pixelated thing, but it was moving as well. I really did think I was having a stroke at that time. I ended up going in and having a look in the mirror because I wanted to look at my eye to see what the eyes were doing, because I was very aware that, if you have something going wrong like a stroke or your heart, the pupil actually opens up quite widely. So I went and had a look and I couldn't see this side of my face. It was just all white. I really thought I was having a stroke then. So my family member said, do you want to go up to the ER? And I went, oh, no, I don't think I want to go to the ER. And he said, look, let's just sit down. Let's just sit down for a while and have a cup of tea and see if it passes. I thought, okay, it might be the retina. Maybe the retina's torn. I didn't know. But I'd had the cup of tea, and as I settled down, it stopped. It was gone. So I went to bed and didn't have a headache, didn't have anything. Woke up the next morning and I thought, well, I'll probably go to the optometrist anyway, but I woke up the next morning and all I could see was visual symptoms again. There was movement from the carpet. It was as if the carpet was moving on its own. And I thought, that's strange. It was kind of like if you visualize on the horizon, you see heat coming up. It was much like that, those waves of heat. And I also started to have other visual disturbances in that I thought I could see my cat out of the corner of my eye, but it was in like a negative. And I also went and fed my birds, and I fed the bird on top of the veranda, and then it went down below, and so I went over to try and feed it there, but it wasn't there, and I thought it must have flown away, but then it suddenly was there again. It was really, really weird stuff, So I decided I'd go to the optometrist, and I went to a local guy here. They were wonderful. They were very, very helpful, and did all the tests, but couldn't actually see anything that was wrong. So they decided then that they asked me whether I would like to have a bit further investigation, and I wasn't really sure, but I thought, well, I may as well. So they sent me down to the Queensland Eye Institute for further testing. I had a referral, and from there, about a week or so later, I had an appointment with a specialist there. They put me through a whole heap of tests, and I then sat down with a specialist in his clinic, expecting to just find out that there was something going on with my eye. And he said, well, your eyes look really, really good. And he started to ask me a lot of really strange questions. And I think the strangest one, which I found quite offensive, was, are you taking LSD, or have you ever had LSD in your life? And I thought, well, I really hadn't. I don't take anything. I'm clean living, and I look after myself, and I eat well, and he was just really, there was a lot of his attitude that was very distressing to me. It actually upset me and made me quite angry. But he said, look, I can't find anything wrong with your eye, but we'll just send you for an MRI just in case. So I left there angry, annoyed, thinking to myself, no point, having an MRI, it's expensive, I don't really need it, there's nothing wrong, he couldn't find anything. And I nearly wasn't going to have the MRI done, but I was sort of discussing it with my family, and it was suggested that I may as well, I've gone this far now, go and have it done just in case, you never know. And if there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong. So I went to have the MRI that week while I was in Brisbane, and didn't really think much more of it, to be honest. I just thought it would come back okay. So I went home again, and it was about 2 weeks later. I actually got the imaging through the website, so that the actual X-ray website lets you have that. By the time you get it, it usually has a report because it's been to a doctor, but the images were the only thing to come through. So I looked at the images, and it had 4 images that were isolated, which I thought was rather strange. So I had a look at those 4, and they had words on them, ophthalmic, and they had arrows, and they had little boxes on it, and I was like, oh, there's something wrong here. There's something in my brain. I didn't know what it was because there was no report. So I decided to go on the internet and start looking for similar images to see if I could locate what it is. I found an identical image, exactly the same position, and it was a brain aneurysm. And then I kept trying to rationalize, this can't be my brain, this can't be my imaging. There's nothing wrong with me, I don't feel sick, I don't feel unwell. This can't be mine. And I sat there and I didn't really know anything about brain aneurysms except that people died from them. So I started to do some research. Kind of sat on the lounge for a while actually, and just, I was like a stunned mullet. I just was a bit shocked, you know. How can that be happening to me? I didn't feel sick. I was doing all the things that I'd always done in my life. I didn't feel any different. I had a brain aneurysm. Surely it can't be me. Not long after that, and I mean within minutes, to be honest, about 20 minutes later, I got a call from the Eye Institute specialist. And he said, I have your results in front of me from your MRI, and I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but you have a brain aneurysm behind your right eye. And I just listened because, you know, I'd already found that out. I already knew. And so it really wasn't a surprise for me. It was just confirmation. And he said, well, from here, what we need to do now is to get you a referral to go and see a specialist. So I will be referring you to a specialist in Brisbane, a brain surgeon in Brisbane, and they can take it from there. And so I just listened and took it all on board. And I thought, okay, I'll wait for your call. And so I hung up from that. I waited till my family came home and told them that I had a brain aneurysm. It was one of those moments in time that you never forget. It was a moment in time that completely changed my life as I knew it. It's just one of those things.